Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion is called Vayechi. It means he went. I almost forgot. Today is January the 3rd or the 14th of Tevet. And we're going to be reading from Genesis chapter 47, verse 28, going through to chapter 50, verse 26. We're going to be reading 1 Kings chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, and Revelation 7, verses 1 through 8. Now, the verses in Genesis are going to be found on page 52 of the scripture, always the scripture. I really love the way it reads. Let's see, we're starting in 28. And Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim 17 years. So the length of Yaakov's life was 147 years. And the time for Israel to die drew near. And he called his son Joseph and said to him, "Now, if I have found favor in your eyes, please put your hand under my thigh and show loving commitment and truth to me. Please do not bury me in Mitzrayim, but I shall lie with my fathers, and you shall take me up out of Mitzrayim and bury me in their burial place." And he said, "I do as you have asked." And he said, "Swear to me." And he swore to him, and Israel bowed himself on the head of his bed. And after these events, it came to be that it was said to Joseph, "See, your father is sick." And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And Yaakov was told, "See, your son Joseph is coming to you." And Israel strengthened himself and sat up on the bed. And Yaakov said to Joseph, "El Shaddai appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan and blessed me. And he said to me, 'See, I am making you fruitful and shall increase you and make of you an assembly of people and give this land to your seed after you as an everlasting possession.' And now your two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Mitzrayim, before I came to you in Mitzrayim, they are mine, as Reuben and Shimon are mine. Your offspring, whom you shall bring forth after them, are yours, and let them be called by the name of their brothers in their inheritance. And I, when I came from Padan, Rahel died beside me in the land of Canaan on the way, when there was born a little distance to go to Ephrath. And I buried her there on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem. And Israel saw Joseph's sons and said, 'Who are these?' And Joseph said to his father, 'They are my sons, whom Elohim has given me in this place.' And he said, 'Bring them to me, and let me bless them.' And the eyes of Israel were dim with age, and he was unable to see. And he drew them near him, and he kissed them and embraced them. And Israel said to Joseph, 'I had not thought to see your face, but see, Elohim has also shown me your seed.' So Joseph brought them from between his knee and bowed them with his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim with his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh with his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it on Ephraim's head, whom was the younger, and his left hand on Manasseh's head, consciously directing his hands. For Manasseh was the firstborn, and he blessed Joseph and said, "The Elohim before whom my father Abraham and Isaac walked, the Elohim who has fed me all my life long to this day, the messenger who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the youths, and let my name be called upon them, and the name of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and let them increase to a multitude in the midst of the earth." And when Joseph saw that his father had laid his right hand on the head of Ephraim, it was evil in his eyes, and he took hold of his father's hand and removed it from the head of Ephraim to the head of Manasseh. And Joseph said to his father, "Do not, my father, for this one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head." But his father refused and said, "I know, my son, I know. He also becomes a people, and he also is great. And yet the younger brother is greater than he, and his seed is to become the completeness of the nations." And he blessed them on that day, saying, "In you Israel shall bless, saying, Elohim make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh." Thus he put Ephraim before Manasseh. And Yisrael said to Joseph, "See, I am dying, but Elohim shall be with you and bring you back to the land of your father. And I have given to you one portion above your brothers, which I took from the head of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow." And Yaakov called his sons and said, "Gather together, so that I declare to you what is to befall you in the last days. Gather together and hear, you sons of Yaakov, and listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you were my firstborn, my power, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of exaltation, and the excellency of power. Boiling like water, you do not excel, because you went up to your father's bed, then you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Shimon and Levi, your brothers, their weapons are implements of violence. Let my being not enter their council. Let my esteem not be united to their assembly. Because they killed a man, excuse me, because they killed a man in their displeasure, and they lamed an ox in pleasure. Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Yaakov and scatter them among Israel. You, Yehuda, your brothers praise you. Your hand is on the neck of your enemies. Your father's children bowed down before you. Yehuda is a lion's cub From the prey you have gone up, my son. He bowed down, he crouched like a lion, and like a lion, who does rouse him? The scepter shall not turn aside from Yehuda, nor an inscriber from between his feet, until Shiloh comes, and to him is the obedience of peoples. Binding his donkey to the vine, and his donkey's colt to the choice vine. He washed his garments in wine, and his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun dwells on the seashore. He is for a haven for ships, and his border is unto Zidon. Issachar is a strong donkey, lying down between two burdens. And he saw that a resting place was good, and that the land was pleasant, and he inclined his shoulders to bear a burden, and became a subject to slave labor. Dan rightly ruled his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Dan is a serpent by the way, an adder by the path, that bites the horse's heels so that its riders fall backwards. I have waited for your deliverance, O Yahweh. Gad, a raiding band, raids him, but he raids its heel. Bread from Ashur is rich, and he gives delicacies of a sovereign. Naphtali is a deer let loose. He gives words of elegance. Joseph is an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree, an offshoot of a fruit-bearing tree by a fountain. His branches run over the wall. And the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty one of Yaakov. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. From the El of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and of the womb. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors up to the limit of the everlasting hills. They are on the head of Joseph, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. Benjamin is a wolf that tears. In the morning he eats prey, and at night he divides the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father spoke to them, and he blessed them, and he blessed each one according to his own blessing. And he commanded them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for a burial site. There they buried Abraham and Sarah, his wife. There they buried Isaac and Ribkah, his wife. And there I buried Leah. The field purchased, and the cave which is in it, from the sons of Heth. And then Jacob ended commanding his sons. He drew his feet up into the bed and breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. And Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. And Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. And 40 days were completed for him, for so are completed the days of embalming. And the Mitzrites wept for him 70 days. And when the days of weeping for him were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I have found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, saying, See, I am dying. Bury me in my burial site, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. And now, please, let me go up and bury my father, and then return. And Pharaoh said, Go up and bury your father, as he made you swear. And Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Mitzrayim, and all the house of Joseph, and his brothers, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. And there went up with him both chariot and horsemen, and it was a very great company. And they came to the threshing floor of Atad, which is beyond the Yarden, and they lamented there with a great and a very heavy lamentation. And he performed 7 days of mourning for his father. And when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning at the threshing floor at Atad, they said, This is a grievous mourning for the Mitzrites. That is why the name was called Abel Mitzrayim, which is beyond the Yarden. And his sons did to him as he had commanded them. For his sons brought him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave, the field of Machpelah, before Mamre, which Abraham bought with the field from Ephraim the Hittite as property for a burial site. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Mitzrayim, he and his brothers, and all who went up with him to bury his father. And when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, What if Joseph hates us and pays us back for all the evil which we did to him? And they sent word to Joseph, saying, Before your father died, he commanded, saying, This is what you are to say to Joseph. I beg you, please forgive the transgressions of your brothers and their sin, for they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgressions of the servants of the Elohim of your fathers. And Joseph wept when they spoke to him. And his brothers also went and fell down before his face, and they said, See, we are your servants. And Joseph said to them, Do not fear, for I am in the place of Elohim. And you intended evil against me, but Elohim intended it for good, in order to do it as it is this day, to keep a great many people alive. And now, do not fear. I provide for you and your little ones. So he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. And Joseph dwelt in Mitzrayim, he and his father's household. And Joseph lived 110 years. And Joseph saw Ephraim's children to the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knee. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am dying, but Elohim shall certainly visit you and bring you out of this land to the land which he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And Joseph made the children of Israel swear, saying, Elohim shall certainly visit you, and you shall bring up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old. And they embalmed him, and he was placed in a coffin in Mitzrayim. You know, the verses where Joseph was talking to his brothers about, don't fear, because this is where Elohim placed me. I fought for so many years, so angry, because I had been taken places I didn't want to go, done things I didn't want to do, made choices I didn't necessarily want to make, but thought I had to. And now I know, and it's just a second witness to me here, that it was all because it was Yah's plan. And it was all for someone else's healing. I'm so thankful that I've been able to find a voice and to find a way to speak out against abuse. There's so many times when abuse is so hidden within a family. The people in the family don't even realize the extent that it happened. Or they buried their eyes to it, or I don't know what. But no matter the reason, Yah uses it. He'll continue to use it. And as long as he gives me breath, I will continue to reach out and to talk to people and be a support for anyone who has had to deal with that kind of situation in their life. Because no one should ever, ever have to fight that battle alone. Yah is there with you. If you don't know him, reach out to him today. If you need help, put something in the chat. I'll pray for you. I have friends that will be praying for you. But don't try to deal with it on your own. Because it's not something that you can do on your own. It will try to consume you. The best way to fight it is to bring it to the light. And Yahweh is that light. I always use the expression, the light at the end of the tunnel. And I was always terrified that that light was a freight train ready to run me over. But it's not. That light at the end of the tunnel is Yah, waiting for you, wanting you to come home to him, wanting you to just curl up in his lap, wanting to comfort you. The word says that his burden is light, and it is. The burden you carry with abuse is heavier than anything that he would ever put on you. Trade that burden for his light burden. The burden of the law is not a heavy burden. He gives us that as a path to walk, as direction, as safety. It's all about direction. He doesn't want us just wandering aimlessly through the world trying to figure it out. That's why he sent Yeshua, Jesus, to show us the path, to show us how to walk, to show us how to do this. Please reach out to him today. Let's continue the reading. We'll go into the prophets now. Let's see, we're going to 1 King chapter 2. That's on page 382. We're going to read verses 1 through 12. And it came to be when Yahweh was to take up Eliyahu to the heavens by a whirlwind, that Eliyahu went with Elisha from Gilgal. And Eliyahu said to Elisha, "Please remain here, for Yahweh has sent me on to Bethel." And Elisha said, "As Yahweh lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they went down to Bethel. And the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahweh is taking away your master from your head?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Elisha, please remain here, for Yahweh has sent me on to Jericho." And he said, "As Yahweh lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they came into Jericho. And the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came down to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahweh is taking away your master from over you today?" And he said, "I also know. Be silent." And Eliyahu said to him, "Please remain here, for Yahweh has sent me on to the Jordan." And he said, "As Yahweh lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And the two of them went on. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood facing them at a distance, while the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Eliyahu took his mantle and rolled it up and struck the water, and it was divided this way and that, so that the two of them passed over on dry ground. And it came to be, when they had passed over, that Eliyahu and Elisha said to Elisha, "Ask what I am to do for you before I am taken away from you." And Elisha said, "Please, let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." And he said, "You have made it hard to ask. Yet if you see me when I am taken from you, it is yours. But if not, it is not." And it came to be as they continued on and spoke that, see, a chariot of fire with horses of fire, which separated the two of them. And Eliyahu went up by a whirlwind into the heavens. And Elisha saw it, and he cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen. And he saw him no more. Then he took hold of his garments and tore them into two pieces. And from the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, we're going to read from Revelation, chapter 7, verses 1 through 8. It's going to be on page 1204. And after this, I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth. And the winds should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. Of the tribes of Yehudah, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Reuben, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Gad, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Asher, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Naphtali, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Manasseh, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Shimon, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Levi, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Issachar, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Zebulun, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Joseph, 12,000 were sealed. Of the tribes of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. Please let me know in the comments if you're enjoying these, if you're getting anything out of them, even if it's just a small word of encouragement. It would really touch my heart. I appreciate everyone who is coming to the channel, and please share it with someone who may need to hear these words. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.